Hi guys, today we're going to go ahead and try to factor these using a grouping method. And remember in class I talked about, I know you learned how to do this using slide and divide and some other methods, but you got to go outside that box and try something different because this is going to help you with other things in Algebra 2, which you are now in. Okay, so the first thing you do, notice underneath the polynomial I labeled the terms A, B, and C. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the number that's in the A and the B, and I'm going to disregard the signs. I know we have a -2 and a -9, but disregard that and just think of it as a 2 and a 9. And when I multiply them over here, I'm going to put 18. Whoop, I think we need to get a little bit thicker pen, okay? So give me 1 second here. Let's make that just a tad bit thicker. Okay, so now 18. Oh, still not very thick. Let me try it one more time. Okay, now I think I got it. There we go, 18. Okay, so now in my chart, I'm going to list all the numbers, the factors that could get me 18. And I always start at 1. So 1, 18, 2, 9, 3, 6, 4 won't work, 5 won't work, and then we're back to 6 again. So you know you've gotten them all. Okay, so when we're doing the grouping, we're going to bring down our A term. We're just going to, well, first, before we start, I almost forgot, we need to pull out that -1. So -1 comes out. And remember, when you pull out a -1, it changes all those signs in the middle. Okay, so then I'm going to have a 2n squared, and it's going to become positive. My 11n is now minus 11n, and my -9 is now plus 9. Okay, so now, when I start my grouping, remember that -1 is still part of the problem. Then I'm going to keep my 2n squared, my A term. I'm going to put a couple blanks. That's going to be my middle term. That's going to get me that -11n, that B value. And then I'm going to put my plus 9 back at the end. Okay, now, when we try to get that B value, which is right here, okay, what we're trying to do is look over in our table of values. So we're over here and we're looking right in here. Whoops, excuse me. Let's see if I can't pick that up and move that right in here. And we're looking for a combination of those numbers that's going to allow me to get 11. Okay, so if you look at that 2 and 9, I'm going to go ahead and circle it so it stands out. What could I do to those two numbers to make it look like a -11? Okay, and hopefully you're thinking you need a -2 and a -9. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is take those two numbers and write them just like I see, but I have to make sure I include those n's. So I'm going to put -2n, and I'm going to put -9n. Okay, now the next step is we're going to regroup these. That's why that gets its name, the grouping method. I'm going to put the first two terms together, and notice where I put those parentheses. The last two are going to come together, and I left that minus in between for a reason. Okay? Alright, so now what I want to do is I'm going to take the two groupings that we have. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewrite this. The -1 is still there. Nothing's changed. Okay, now from that 2n, this grouping right up here, this grouping here, okay, I'm going to take that and look at it and see what can I pull out of it that they both share. So hopefully you're seeing a 2 and you're seeing an n. Okay, so I'm going to pull out that 2 and an n. Left inside, I'm going to have an n minus 1. Okay, now that n minus 1 is the trick here. That's what makes this, once you get this, you're in the home stretch. I'm going to duplicate n minus 1 over here. Then I'm going to look over here and think, what can come out of here? What does this n have to multiply by to get a 9n? Okay, and hopefully you're seeing a minus 9. Okay, so if I put that minus 9 and then go and look at this, if I take that -9 and multiply it with n, do I get 9 and above? And same thing, -9 times that -1 is going to give me plus n, or plus 9, excuse me. Okay, now we're ready to put this together. In the front, these two terms, or these two numbers, I guess you can still call them terms, -1 times that 2n is going to be -2n. Then I have n minus 1 minus 9, and n minus 1. Okay, now we're going to pull it together. The two parentheses that match up, this and this, stay on our problem. I'm going to put it over here, n minus 1. Then the outside pieces that aren't grouped together come together. So I'm going to put that negative 2n that's in the front and that minus 9 together in its own parentheses. And basically, there you have it. You're done. Okay? Right there is everything that you need. Whoop, let's get that over here. Right there is everything you need. And you have just factored your first one. Okay? Okay, let's try our second one. All right, now if I'm looking at this, there's no negative number in front. I can't pull out a 3 because 3 can't go into 22 or 45. So we're ready to start. All right, so I'm looking at my A value and my C value. So I'm looking at, we have a 3 and we have a 45. So if I multiply 45 and 3 together, let's see if I can do that in my head. I'm going to have 15, 12, 13. So we're going to have 135. Okay, now I'm going to go in my table and I'm going to think of all the numbers I can multiply to get 135. So obviously 1 and 135. 2 isn't going to work. 3, I think 3 will go in there. Let's try that. 3 will go in there, let's see, 45 times. Okay, I know 4 is not going to work for me. 5 will go in there. 5 will go in there 27 times. Okay, 6, I don't believe 6 is going to work. 7's not going to work. 8, 8, let me think. 8 possibly? No, 8 won't work, but 9 will. 9 will go in there, let's see, 1 time. 9 will go 15 times. Okay, so that's a few of the factors, and I'll stop there. And if we need more, we'll list them. All right, so let's go ahead and start. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my A term. So I'm going to keep 3n squared. I'm going to put a couple spaces for my middle. That's going to help me get that B term. And then I'm going to put my minus 45. All right, so now I'm looking up here at this B term. Really, really important. I'm going to box it in. And I'm going to go over to my table, and I'm going to look at my table of values. So I'm over here, and I'm checking this out. And I'm trying to find the one that could come together and somehow get me 22, adding or subtracting. So hopefully you see it right here, 5 and 27. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and circle those. That helps me keep my eye in it. And then I'm going to think, what do I need to do to that 5 or 27 to make it a negative 22? Okay, so if I put a minus by the 5, that's going to be a positive 22. So I know that that negative sign has to go with that 27. All right, so I take those two numbers and I bring it over here. I'm going to put a plus 5n because the 5 is positive. I'm going to put a minus 27n because that's the negative. Okay, so now this is where you get to do your magic and put your groupings, okay? So I'm going to put a grouping around the first two, a grouping around the last two terms, and I left that minus in the middle for a reason. Okay, so now we're going to look at this first one. What can I pull out of there that they both share? Okay, and I know I just heard you say an n, so I'm going to pull that n out. Left inside is 3n plus 5. Okay, now this is the easy part. You get to duplicate that. You're going to take that 3n plus 5 and you're going to put it over here. Okay, now for the second part though, you've got to start. You need a number in here, in this middle, that multiplies with that 3n plus 5, okay, but has to get me 27n. So the minus is still there in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and put that back down, and hopefully between these two, if you're looking at this and this, you see that you need a 9, okay, and go ahead and look at that. Negative 9 times that 3n would give me that 27n, and negative 9 times that 5 is going to create that 45 up here. Okay, so you know you got what you need. All right, the last part's the easy part. You bring down the pieces that are outside your parentheses and put them together, n minus 9. And then you have your other two, 3n plus 5, and you've done it. You've factored another one by grouping. What do you think? Is it getting easier? Okay, we're going to try one more. So hang on and let me get you a clean screen. Okay, let's try one more. All right, before we start, Do you see that -3? You know you can't start with a negative, so we're going to pull that -1 out. Okay, then remember it changes all the signs. So you're going to have a 3x squared. Whoop, there we go. I'm going to have a minus 11x, and we'll have that -4. Okay, now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to think my A and C values. I have a 3 and a 4. Remember, ignore the signs for a minute and just multiply those together. 3 and 4 is 12. Now we're going to write down all the numbers that give me 12, but they have to come, and we're looking for a combination of 11, adding or subtracting, okay? All right, so let's do it. 1 and 12, and what do you got? 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and you don't really need to list them all. As soon as you see it, you really can hit the brakes and stop, and you probably already did, okay? What are you going to tell me? Are you seeing a 1 and a 12? Okay, all right, let me see. 1 and 12, right there. Now, what do they have to do? Remember, you have to get it where it's -11. So what sign goes here between these two numbers to make it -11? Okay, are you telling me -12? Because if you did, you got it. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to take the -1. Remember, we bring down the A value. I bring down that C value. And I need the two numbers in the middle that are going to get me that B part, which is that -11 above it. Okay, so I'm going to put in plus 1x from my table of values minus 12x. Okay, so now, what's my next step? Do you remember? Okay, we're going to put our parentheses. I'm going to regroup this. I'm going to put a parentheses around the first two and the last two, and I'm leaving that minus out there for a reason. I didn't forget about it. Okay, so now let's look at this part. What can come out of this that they share in common? Okay, and I just heard you said a negative or an x. So the -1 is there, and I pulled out that x. Inside, you're going to have 3x plus 1. Okay, the next step is you take this and you write it again. 3x plus 1. That's the easy part. Once you get to here, like I said, the rest should be pretty easy. Okay, so now we're going to look above here, okay? We're going to look at this 3x and that 12x. What does that 3x have to multiply by to get a 12x? And you're yelling out a 4. I hear you. So remember, that minus in the middle comes down. There's my 4. Okay, you're almost done. All you do now is bring these two together. So I have minus 1x minus 4 and 3x plus 1. And you only write that one twice, even though once, even though you see it twice. Okay, some of you guys probably are thinking, do I need that -1 up here in that front one? Not so much. You could put -x minus 4 if you want it. It's all the same thing, okay? Whatever makes you happy on that one would work. If you feel better leaving that -1, go ahead and do it. Sometimes I do. I like to see it sometimes. Okay, that's your lesson on grouping. Hopefully this has helped you, okay? And you're able to attempt some of your homework. Okay, good luck. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye.